Happy Monday! Welcome back to Drinking by Myself. The sunburn on my chest is actually reflecting up and making my face pink. This video is late because last night I was too tired to film one. So about an hour ago, I posted to my Instagram saying, someone give me a video idea right now, I will film it right this minute, I will have it uploaded before supper. The very first suggestion that came in was from Busy Bookcase, and they said recommend books A to Z based on the title. So I'm going to go with that, the first one. Mission accepted. I can have some clues because there are some books right next to me, but I'm not going to go and look at my bookshelf. I'm not going to Google it. I'm just going to see if I can get the whole way through, A to Z, remembering books, and then tell you whether or not I recommend them, I guess. How's this going to go? Very unclear, but we don't have long, so let's crack on. A is for A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, 5 stars. Doesn't necessarily mean I recommend it in like a blanket way, because for a lot of people it will be too intense. It's got a lot of assault and abuse and trauma and self-harm and several other very upsetting aspects of the content, but I loved it. It was a 5-star book. Okay, B is for... I'm already stuck. B is for Burn Our Bodies Down. Just saw it sitting right here by Rory Power. I will recommend instead Wilder Girls by Rory Power. C is for The Canterbury Tales. I don't know if I can recommend it or not because I don't think I've ever actually read The Canterbury Tales, but I was in a play when I was about 8 years old. Our school play, we did The Canterbury Tales. We did The Knight's Tale, which was nothing to do with the really good movie. The really good movie was way better. And we also did The Parson's Tale, which was the one that was just completely ridiculous, and someone had to wear a fake bum and like hang out the window, and the whole play was basically a fart joke, and it was like, this is the history of literature. Fantastic stuff. D is for Dance Upon the Air by Nora Roberts. I have read that because Emma Tobias told me to. I did a 24-hour readathon where I read a bunch of romance books that she recommended. I'll link to it below. And Dance Upon the Air, I was like, there's no way I'm going to enjoy this book. It looks terrible. And then I really liked it in the end. It's not going to be an all-time favourite, but it was basically Sleeping with the Enemy meets Gilmore Girls meets practical magic, and I had a really good time reading it, except for the fact that it was like 3 in the morning and I was very tired and I wished that I'd never been born. E is for Emma by Jane Austen. 5 out of 5, would recommend to a friend, both the book and the person. F is for Frog Music by Emma Donoghue. I would recommend that one. It's an interesting book. It's historical fiction. It's not my favourite of Emma Donoghue's. She's had some books that I've like absolutely adored, but I really enjoyed Frog Music. It's a historical murder mystery based on a true story. It's set over a few days in San Francisco. It's about a cross-dressing woman who was murdered, and that's the true story part of it, and then Emma Donoghue kind of imagines an explanation for it. G is for Great Expectations. I read it once. I don't remember it, other than I remember feeling bored. H. Have I read a book that starts with H? What about Here We Are, Feminism for the Real World, a non-fiction collection of essays with loads of different contributors, all about intersectional feminism aimed at a teenage readership. Would recommend for a teenage readership. Yeah, it was nice, I liked it. I is for Inkheart by Cornelia Funke. This was like my favourite book when I was little. I read it, gave it 5 stars, absolutely adored it. I've tried multiple times since then to reread it. Every single time I give up and DNF it because it's so boring, but I like want to capture the magic that I felt when I first read it. It's something about people, like characters from books coming to life and coming out of the books, and there's this girl called Maggie who has this magic book and she's looking for her dad. I don't even remember because every single time I've tried since then I've been like, what is this shit? Probably because it's a YA fantasy book, which isn't my thing now as a 30-year-old non-fantasy reader. So I should call myself 30. I'm not 30 yet, but bloody soon. But I loved it at the time. J is for Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Would I recommend this book? I guess. Like, it's a book that when I studied it, and studied lots of the kind of reimaginings of it and like feminist retellings of it, and you know, there's like some strong feminist moments in the original book, that I found like I really enjoyed aspects of it. But I've never actually really loved reading the book itself. I remember the last time I tried to read it being just a bit bored, and wanting Helen, Jane's friend Helen, to be more interesting and less of a drip, and I think that's kind of as far as I got. But I already know that Mr. Rochester is going to be like a creep who keeps his wife in the attic. Like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But I should really try reading it again, because when I studied it, I do remember being like, wow, that's cool. It's incredible that I've built a whole career about talking about books when this is what comes out of my mouth. Right, K is for K. What words even begin with K? Come on, Emma, don't fail. You haven't got very far through the alphabet yet. Kids? Kittens? Kitchens? Kindle? Kindred by Octavia Butler. Yes, would recommend. Very, very good but kind of harrowing book. It's a time travel book about slavery. Yeah, really good. Wow. Can't believe I forgot that one. Alright, L. L is for Lorna Doone. Was that a book? That was a movie. I remember loving the movie Lorna Doone, or the TV show. It was something. I don't remember anything about it, but when I was a kid, we used to watch it on repeat because there was like, it was just very dramatic. It was like a soap opera. Someone got stabbed at one point. Yeah, I don't think that was a book that I read though. L is for, oh, I literally just read a book called The Lamplighters by Emma Stone X. That was fun. It's based on a true story. It's a mystery about these three men who went missing from a lighthouse, which is like a very creepy setting. It's based on that true story, but then she like made up her own version of it, set in Cornwall in the 70s, whereas the original one was like 1900 Scotland. So it was good, and it was like kind of ghosty, but kind of not, and I feel like I don't really even understand what happened and what I'm supposed to think, so maybe I need to go down the internet rabbit hole and figure it out. M is for Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. I always have said least favourite Jane Austen, and then the most recent time I read it, which was like 5 years ago, I actually really enjoyed it. It was fun. It was like a soap opera. It was ridiculous. Is that the second thing I've compared to a soap opera? I don't even know, have I ever watched a soap opera? Mansfield Park has Austen's least likeable protagonist from my perspective. Like, she's an interesting character. Jane Austen is very good at writing characters that feel real, but she's just like a bit of a wet blanket. And also, I feel like in this book, suddenly we the reader are supposed to judge and look down on characters that I really like lean towards, that I really like naturally. So the kind of Lizzie Bennet character in Mansfield Park suddenly becomes the villain, because she's Lizzie Bennet but also a little bit slutty, and suddenly we're supposed to hate her. It's like, she sounds great. So yeah, it's not my favourite, but it's definitely not boring. I thought it was boring, and then I reread it and was like, that ain't boring. It's just weird that it came from Jane Austen. And while we're on the Jane Austen theme, N is for Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. That is, well, I say one of my favourites, but to be honest, they're all my favourites except for Mansfield Park, and Northanger Abbey is probably like number 5 on that list. I just loved it so much the first time I read it, because I was on my gap year and I was homesick, and we'd gone skiing. So I was an au pair, and the family I was looking after, their kids, had gone skiing for the weekend, but I don't ski, I don't know how to ski, so I just had to like sit in the chalet the whole time, you know, which I'm not complaining, like that sounds like a nice time, but I was really homesick and there was no one there. I was just by myself and no one could speak to me in English, so I just sat there being sad. But then I read Northanger Abbey and I really enjoyed myself, so it made the weekend go very quickly and very funly. O is for Oliver Twist. I don't think I've read that actually. I only read a scene of it because I heard that I'd seen the movie a lot, and I heard that like the scene where, spoilers for Oliver coming, go if you don't want spoilers, go. Okay, where Nancy gets murdered, was like very awful and like explicit in the book, and for some reason that made me want to look it up. So I read that scene and was like, oh yeah, that was very unpleasant. But no, I haven't read the book. So O is for Of Mice and Men, haven't read. on the Beach by Neville Shute. O is for On the Beach by Neville Shute, which I would recommend. It's been a very long time, like over a decade since I read that, but I remember really liking it at the time. It's a kind of weird, like, dystopian book. It's about, there's been a nuclear war, I think, and basically the last survivors of the whole world are in Australia, and they're just waiting on the beach knowing that a radioactive cloud is on its way and they are also going to die. The rest of the world has been wiped out. They're gonna die too, it's inevitable, but they're just like chilling for their last few days, waiting to see what happens. So it's like bittersweet. I think it was funny. I think they were pretty chill. I think that's what I liked about it, is that instead of panicking, they were just like, okay, cool, well, let's just be pals for a few days, and I really enjoyed it. P is for, my lips are peeling. P for peeling. The Penelopiad. The Penelopiad. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a retelling of the Odyssey from Penelope's perspective. It's by Margaret Atwood. I do recommend it. I really, really liked it, but it's very weird, so it's not going to be for everyone. It's told in like a very strange experimental way. It's definitely the kind of book that could put off some people if you're like, I'm just not gelling with this type of writing, but I really liked it. Q. Oh no, Q's easy. Q is for Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. I would definitely recommend this one. I liked it. I remember I didn't like it as much as I wanted to, and I can't quite remember why. But it's really good. It was really enjoyable, and I read it for my book club with my friends, and we had so much to talk about. Because just kind of opening our eyes to a different perspective, I guess. It's about a black girl, roughly our age, living in Brixton, and kind of being about, like, being displaced from the parts of London that your communities were kind of forced into in the first place, and about the way that men treat her and like fetishize her, and it's also about her mental health issues. It was really damn good. I don't know why I have in my head that I didn't love it as much as, I think maybe just because it was like so hyped, but then inevitably it never lives up to the hype. But I think if I reread it now, I'd be like, this is actually very good. Okay, R. R is for Road Ends by Mary Lawson. I just talked about this in a video I filmed earlier that you won't see for a couple weeks. It's a very sad one, but would definitely recommend if you like sad books. I think I gave it 5 stars. It's about a girl who leaves her family in Canada behind to try and start a new life. So she has this pretty sad family, and she's kind of like holding them together. But she sets off to make a life of her own in London, and we switch between her perspective and then also watching her family 6 months ahead. So we're kind of seeing them fall apart and like knowing the whole time that they are like self-destructing and that they're going to need her. So you're kind of hoping, will she be able to make her own life and not just be sucked back into this family who don't really care about her beyond using her to piece them all together. But you're seeing like 6 months into the future and feeling very bleak about that chance. S is for Sense and Sensibility. Back to Jane Austen, sorry about that, but this one I think maybe is my favourite. So would definitely recommend. It's about sisters, you know I love that. It's very funny. It's basically like a first draft of Pride and Prejudice. That's kind of how I see it. It's very similar. It has a lot of the same supporting characters and the same humour around these characters. Like, you'll really recognise a Mrs. Bennet and Mr. Bennet character in there. It's just fab, and I identify in a very not flattering way, what is the word I'm looking for there, with Marianne. Marianne is the younger sister, or the middle sister, and she is god-awful, and me and her are kindred spirits. T is for, so am I now not allowed to use the word the, because I've used the word the in other ones where the letter wasn't T? I think I need something where it actually begins with T. For that, I'm going to say, why is this so hard? I'm stuck. I've come so far. What's a book that begins with T? Oh my god, one of my favourite books ever. The Time Traveller's Wife. That has 3 T's in it. The Time Traveller's Wife. That one's a time travel book. It may actually be the book that kick-started my whole love of the time travel genre. It's a 5-star book. I would definitely recommend it, except for the fact that lots of people really hate it. It does have a lot of sex scenes. It's just like constant sex scenes. And depending on how hard you think about the time travel, there's definitely some creepy age gap elements to it. but I think I just try and think around that fact. U, that's going to be a hard one. U is for unfathomable. Also, I hope I've got all the letters. I haven't been checking against an alphabet as I go. Who knows what could be going wrong? U is for Ulysses by James Joyce, and no, I would not recommend it. I had to read that at uni. I haven't finished it, to be honest, but the parts that I did read were completely unintelligible. That's another U word for you. And it's all set in one day on the 16th of June, which is my birthday, so it ruined my birthday forever. Moving on to V. V is for Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh. That's my favourite book, or at least it's the book that I always tell people is my favourite book if they ask, because it's very hard coming up with a favourite book. And Vile Bodies is a book that I very much liked, and so therefore it's my favourite book. It's set in the 20s, and it's about the bright young things just partying it up in London in between the wars. It was written before there was a Second World War, but it predicts there's going to be another war. It's completely emotionless in a way that makes me very emotional. Bad things happen to the characters and they're just like, oh darling, what a bore, let's have another party. And that makes me cry more than anything else. W is for Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. And again, yes, I would recommend this one. Another 5-star book. I loved this one. It's literary fiction, it's a murder mystery, it's a court case drama. Hiccuped. It's very, very descriptive nature writing, which usually would probably send me to sleep. But at first it kind of did send me to sleep, but I got into it. I got into the zone. It's just fantastic. It's very, very beautiful writing, but fast paced. I think the reason that it's done so well and been so successful is it really appeals to a big range of types of readers. Whether you're someone who doesn't read very often and wants something that will keep you engaged, whether you're someone who reads a lot and loves very, very deep literary fiction, whether you usually read thrillers, it appeals to so many different types of people, and it's fantastic. XYZ, that's going to be hard. X is for, have I ever read a book that begins with a bloody X, I wonder? I don't think I have ever read a book that begins with X, but I did used to use Xanga before MySpace or Bebo. Does anyone remember Xanga? That's the closest I've come to reading a book that starts with X, is I have read, excuse me, loud cars, I have read my own and my friends' Xanga pages. Y is for You by Caroline Kepnes. It's about a murderer, serial killer. Yes, I'd recommend it. I loved it. It was so much fun. Also really, really recommend the TV show, especially season 2 is so good. It's very creepy because you are inside the murderer's head and you kind of like him, and then you're like, why do I like him? Loads of people fancy him. It's a bit much. And finally, Z is for, can I do a Z? Interesting. The only thing I can think of is less than 0, but that doesn't, the Z's not at the beginning, that doesn't count. But if we're going with that one, no, I wouldn't recommend it. I hated it. It was terrifying and horrifying. I think that's the best I can do. I think X and Z, I must have read in the hundreds or thousands, I don't know how many books I've read in my life, hundreds, let's say, I must have read at least one that begins with an X and one that begins with a Z, you would think. I bet I'm going to think of loads of them the second I stop filming this. But we're going with less than 0 for the purposes of this, and no, I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, thank you so much to, what was your name? Busy Bookcase? That doesn't sound right. Busy Bookcase. I remembered that as Busy Bookcase. Busy Bookcase, thank you so much for this recommendation. That was really fun. Now I've got to edit it straight away, get it uploaded before I have my supper. So see you guys in an hour from now, my time. This will be live. In an hour, 2 at most, all of this will be at the bottom of the Atlantic. That's from Titanic. You're all welcome. Have a nice, sad day. See you next time.